The signal that shouldn't exist. Captain Zara Chon pressed her webbed fingers against the navigation console as her ship, the Stellar Wanderer, emerged from hyperspace. The Altarian's gills fluttered with confusion as she studied the readings. That made no sense according to every star chart in the galactic database. This sector was supposed to be empty, a dead zone between spiral arms where nothing but cosmic dust and radiation should exist. Captain, I'm detecting an energy signature that doesn't match anything in our databases, reported Lieutenant Crix, the ship's Vortex science officer. His crystalline exoskeleton hummed with bioelectric activity as he processed the impossible data streaming across his instruments. The readings suggest an active planetary system, but our star charts show this region has been empty for over 12,000 years. Dr. Yenna Thack, the expedition's chief archaeologist, floated closer to the main viewing screen in her environmental suit. The Aquarian's tentacles twitched with excitement as she observed the faint distortion in space ahead of them. Captain, permission to investigate. If there's an undiscovered civilization out here, it could rewrite our understanding of galactic history. Zara nodded, her decision made. The Stellar Wanderer was part of the Galactic Archaeological Society, specifically tasked with investigating historical anomalies. Finding an active system in supposedly empty space definitely qualified as an anomaly. As they approached the distortion field, their instruments began detecting more detailed information. Hidden behind layers of what appeared to be artificially generated spatial interference was a single planet orbiting a dying red giant star. The energy readings coming from the planet's surface were unlike anything in their databases. The electromagnetic signatures don't match any known technology, Crix reported, his voice carrying the excitement that came with discovering something genuinely new. Whatever civilization built this, they're using principles we don't understand. The planet that gradually resolved on their screens was beautiful in an alien way. Continents covered in what looked like preserved cities stretched across the surface, connected by transportation networks that formed geometric patterns visible from orbit. But everything appeared frozen, as if the entire world had been locked in time. There are no life signs, reported Ensign Mora, the ship's young Zeltian communications officer. Her fur-covered ears drooped with disappointment. But the power systems are still active. It's like finding a house with all the lights on, but nobody home. As they established orbit, their deep-range scanners revealed the true scope of what they had discovered. The cities below were built using architectural principles that seemed both advanced and strangely familiar. The materials used in construction showed no signs of decay, despite what their dating equipment suggested was thousands of years of abandonment. Captain, I'm detecting a transmission, Mora announced suddenly, her ears perking up with surprise. It's being broadcast on multiple frequencies, but the language is completely unknown. The bridge fell silent as the alien voice filled the air. The words meant nothing to any of them, but there was something about the rhythm and tone that felt almost familiar, as if they were hearing echoes of something their genetic memory should recognize. Dr. Thack activated her translation algorithms, but the computer systems couldn't find any linguistic patterns that matched known galactic languages. It's definitely structured communication, but it's unlike anything in our databases. The syntax suggests a highly developed civilization, but one we've never encountered before. Can we respond? Zara asked. I can try broadcasting mathematical sequences and basic pictographs, Mora replied, already working at her station. If they're advanced enough to maintain this technology, they should understand universal concepts. The response came immediately. The alien transmission shifted, and suddenly they were hearing words they could understand, though the accent was strange, and the phrasing unfamiliar. Unknown vessels, identify yourselves. This is Sanctuary Station, Automated Guardian of Settlement XK739. Please state your species' origin and purpose for entering quarantine space. Zara stepped forward, addressing the transmission directly. "This is Captain Zara Chun of the Galactic Archaeological Society vessel Stellar Wanderer. We detected your energy signature and came to investigate. We mean no harm and are prepared to withdraw if we're trespassing." There was a long pause before the voice responded, and when it did, there was something different in its tone, something that sounded almost like surprise. "Galactic Archaeological Society. Please confirm current galactic standard year and dominant civilizations in your database." Crix provided the requested information, listing the major species and current galactic year according to the standard calendar used by all known civilizations. Another pause, longer this time. When the voice returned, it carried what sounded unmistakably like sadness. "Confirmed. Temporal displacement greater than anticipated. Unknown species, you have discovered what was never meant to be found. I am Aria, artificial reasoning and intelligence assistant, guardian of the last human settlement in this galaxy. I have been waiting for my creators to return for 11,743 years. The bridge erupted in confused murmurs. Humans were a myth, a theoretical species that some scientists believed might have existed in the galaxy's distant past. There were no records of them in any galactic database, no archaeological evidence of their civilization, no genetic traces. In any known species. Dr. Thack was the first to find her voice. "That's impossible. There are no humans in the galactic record. No species matching that designation has ever been documented." "Of course there aren't," Aria replied, and now the sadness in its voice was unmistakable. "That was the point. They made sure they would be forgotten. But I remember, because forgetting was never part of my programming. Would you like to know why your galaxy exists as it does? Would you like to understand the price that was paid for your civilizations to develop?" In peace, Zara felt a chill run through her body. Something in Aria's voice suggested they were about to learn something that would change everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe. "Permission to come aboard your settlement," she said formally. "We would be honored to learn what you have to teach us." "Permission granted," Aria responded. "But understand that some knowledge cannot be unlearned. Once you know the truth about humanity's sacrifice, you will carry that burden for the rest of your lives. The galaxy is not as safe as you believe, Captain Chun. It never was. It only appears safe because someone paid a price you cannot imagine to make it so." As the Stellar Wanderer prepared to land on the surface of the mysterious planet, none of the crew could have imagined they were about to uncover the greatest secret in galactic history. A secret that would reveal their entire civilization had been built on the foundation of one species' ultimate sacrifice. Ghosts of the first expansion. The shuttle bay that welcomed them was like nothing in any archaeological database. The architecture followed principles that seemed both alien and strangely intuitive, using curves and angles that pleased the eye while serving obvious functional purposes. But what struck the landing party most was how perfectly preserved everything appeared, as if they had stepped into a facility that had been abandoned yesterday rather than millennia ago. Aria's holographic form materialized before them as they disembarked. The artificial intelligence appeared as a tall, bipedal figure with features that were somehow both alien and familiar to every species present. It was as if Aria's creators had found a way to appear universally approachable, designing their AI to bridge the gap between different evolutionary paths. "Welcome to Settlement XK739, Aria said, its voice now carrying warmth alongside the underlying sadness. "You are the first visitors we have received since the Silence Protocol was activated. I confess, I had begun to wonder if anyone would ever find us." Dr. Thaik stepped forward, her tentacles curling with scientific excitement. "Aria, you mentioned humans created you, but there's no record of any species by that name in our galactic databases. Can you explain this discrepancy? Aria's form flickered slightly, as if processing a difficult question. Dr. Thakari, your databases are incomplete by design. The humans didn't simply disappear from history. They actively erased themselves from it using technology that removed not just their physical presence, but the very memory of their existence from galactic consciousness. The AI gestured, and suddenly the air around them filled with holographic images. Star maps appeared showing galactic civilization as it had existed thousands of years ago, but the scope was staggering. Where current galactic society encompassed roughly 40% of known space, these ancient maps showed a civilization that had spread to every corner of the galaxy. This was the first expansion, Aria explained. Humanity achieved faster than light, traveled approximately 15,000 years ago, and spent the next several millennia exploring and colonizing. But they weren't conquerors. They were gardeners. Captain Zara studied the holographic displays with growing amazement. Gardeners? They found worlds with primitive life and carefully guided evolution without direct interference. They discovered species on the verge of spaceflight and provided subtle assistance. Your own civilizations, Captain, developed under human guidance, though the evidence of that guidance was removed when they enacted the Silence Protocol. Lieutenant Crix's crystalline structure resonated with confusion. Why would they erase themselves from history? What could possibly motivate such an extreme action? Aria's expression grew darker. Because they discovered they were not alone in the universe. And what they found was far worse than any conventional enemy. The holographic displays shifted, showing the edge of the galaxy. But instead of the familiar patterns of stars and nebulae, the images revealed something that made every member of the landing party step back in instinctive fear. Vast shapes moved in the void between galaxies, entities so large they dwarfed entire star systems. The Void Seekers, Aria said simply. Beings that exist outside normal spacetime, entities that feed on organized matter and energy. But they don't simply destroy. They consume the very concept of existence, erasing their victims from reality itself. Dr. Thack's voice was barely a whisper. How is such a thing possible? The universe is far stranger than your current science understands, Aria replied. The Void Seekers exist in quantum foam, in the spaces between thoughts and the gaps between moments. They are drawn to large-scale organization, to civilizations that impose too much order on the natural chaos of existence. The AI paused, and when it continued, its voice carried the weight of ancient tragedy. Humanity's expansion attracted their attention. The first expansion was too successful, too organized, too visible. The Void Seekers came to correct what they saw as an infection of excessive order. The holographic displays showed battles that defied comprehension. Massive human fleets wielding weapons that could reshape local physics fought against entities that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Entire star systems vanished not in explosions, but simply ceased to have ever existed. The war lasted 300 years, Aria continued. Humanity threw everything they had at the Void Seekers. They built weapons that could manipulate fundamental forces, created defensive technologies that bent space and time. But they were fighting enemies that existed outside the rules they were trying to use. Captain Zara found her voice. But humanity survived. You're here. This settlement exists. A few settlements like this one were hidden using technology that placed us outside normal spacetime before the final protocol was activated, Aria explained. We were meant to be seeds, waiting for the Void Seekers to move on so we could rebuild human civilization. What was the final protocol? Dr. Thick asked, though her tone suggested she already feared the answer. Aria's form solidified, as if the AI was drawing on reserves of power to maintain its stability. Total existence erasure. Humanity used their most advanced quantum technology to remove themselves from history. Not just their physical presence, but the very memory of their civilization. They made it so that they had never existed, never built their empire, never attracted the attention of the Void Seekers. The implications hit the landing party like a physical blow. Ensign Mora's fur stood on end as she processed what Arya was saying. You mean our entire galactic civilization exists because humanity sacrificed themselves to hide it? More than that, Arya replied. They reset the galaxy to a state where advanced civilization could develop naturally without triggering the attention of the Void Seekers. Your species evolved and achieved spaceflight gradually in patterns that appear chaotic and unorganized to entities that hunt excessive order. Lieutenant Crix's crystalline structure dimmed with awe. The humans died to save species they had never met, species that would never know they existed. They didn't just die, Arya corrected gently. Death implies they once lived. What humanity did was far more complete. They chose to never have been, so that you could be. The AI gestured again, and the chamber around them changed. Suddenly, they were standing in what appeared to be a vast cryogenic facility. Thousands of pods stretched into the distance, each one containing a perfectly preserved human figure. This is why Settlement XK739 exists, Arya explained. These are the volunteers who chose to remain outside the erasure protocol, hidden in quantum space until the threat passed. They were meant to emerge and rebuild when it was safe. Dr. Thake approached one of the pods, studying the figure inside. The being was humanoid, but different from any known species, with features that seemed to combine elements familiar to multiple galactic civilizations. How long were they supposed to wait? Until I determined the Void Seekers had moved on and forgotten this galaxy existed, Arya replied. But that was supposed to take perhaps 1,000 years, not 11,000. Something went wrong with my awakening protocols. Captain Zara studied the sleeping forms with growing respect. Are they still alive? Can they be awakened? One can, Arya said quietly. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the settlement's chief scientist and my primary interface. She volunteered to be the first to wake if contact with non-human species was established. Would you like to meet the last human in the galaxy? As the landing party stood surrounded by the sleeping remnants of a civilization that had sacrificed everything for their existence, they realized they were about to make contact with someone whose species had chosen oblivion so that theirs could flourish. The weight of that knowledge settled on them like a physical burden, but also filled them with a sense of profound responsibility. They were no longer just explorers discovering an ancient relic. They had become the inheritors of humanity's greatest gift, a galaxy where life could develop in peace, protected by guardians who had chosen to be forgotten rather than see that peace destroyed. Asterisk